Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of the Rogers Radio Podcast. I am your host, Alyssa Rogers, and today we have a very special guest. We have Lee Vogler here, and I am so excited to talk to you today. I say that for everyone, but I really am excited because you are like the first councilman we've had on the podcast, and I have so many burning questions.
I'm ready. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming in here today. And you are in our studio that's still under construction, so thank you for bearing with the heat in here. And I mean, I just appreciate it.
Hey, well, no problem. Hopefully I don't sweat too much.
I don't think you will. And I mean, hey, you didn't want to see the questions beforehand, so hopefully you don't sweat too much. I have some burning questions here that I want to get to know.
All right.
And I want everyone watching and listening to get to know you too, because you are so active in Danville. I see you everywhere, whether it's on a sign, whether it's on social media, and it's just really refreshing to see you out and about and, you know, a person that is giving back to the community and to a community that's growing rapidly, and you're a big part of that. So thank you, first of all, for everything that you do.
Well, it's been a blessing to be a part of this ride for the last several years, and hopefully I get to continue to be.
Yes, and I mean, the youngest to ever be elected, is that in Danville?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
24 years old.
I was about a year and a half out of college when I first got elected. I was 24 and turned 25 not long after I got in. But yeah, I was the youngest, and actually I'm still the youngest one down there. So but 12 years later.
I mean, that's something to be very proud of. And going to that, I want to ask you, what led you to running for local office at such a young age? Like, what was that moment where you said, I'm going to start giving back to my community?
Well, I grew up in Danville, and I think like a lot of young people, no matter where they grow up, you think, I can't wait to get away and be somewhere else. Anywhere has got to be better than where I am kind of thing. And I loved Danville growing up. It wasn't that, but I was just kind of wanted to branch out. And so when I was going to VCU and a student there, I was living in Richmond. Obviously, for the few years I was there, and I got to see a lot of things, and I got involved. My classes were in political science and community involvement and serving and just learning the inner workings of government and what that means. And so each time I would come home, I would start to think, I see things in Danville. I see potential. I see possibility. And so a lot of people at that time, especially because you're talking 2008, 2009, 2010, when I was in college, that was the height of the recession. The mill had left. All these things, like Danville was at rock bottom, basically. And a lot of folks were kind of starting to give up. And I said, no, wait a minute. It doesn't have to be this way. And so while I was still at VCU, I started thinking about, hey, I want to move back home. And so after I graduated, I decided to move back home. I started a group, actually, even before I finished college, called Moving Danville Forward. That was just going to be this. It started out as a Facebook group of ideas and things that we could do to improve Danville and get feedback from people. And then when I got back home, I started attending council meetings, and I would take some of the ideas coming from the public and present them to council and try to be, because not everyone's comfortable going up and standing at that podium and speaking. And now 12 plus years later, I always think of that when I'm sitting now on the other side of it. When somebody comes up, I'm like, I remember what it's like standing at that podium. But so that was the beginning of it. And I wanted to be involved and I wanted to help. And when I moved back, again, especially you're talking 2010, like everyone said, why in the world would you come back here? And my answer, I know it sounds cheesy, but I would say, because one day I'd like for somebody not to be asked that question. And so for the past 12 plus years, I've tried to do my part to help make that a reality.
Well, you've done a great job at that. And the cool thing about it is you came back and you ran, and you have really gotten to be part of that growth, because where it was in 2010, 11, 12, and where Danville is today, it's a drastic difference. And so how does that make you feel to know that you have been a part of that?
It's
through.
It feels good, but more so in the fact that just that Danville itself is improving. And I grew up as an athlete, and as I'm not you can probably tell on camera, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. So I was always that small, scrappy kind of baseball player and a hustle. So I've always had this kind of just chip on my shoulder mentality and like the underdog. And Danville is the ultimate underdog. I mean, people had written us off and left us for dead. And so for us to come back in the way we have and to become the comeback city, it feels good. And, for whatever small part I've played in that is something that I'm proud of. But we've got a great team. But now as a father, I've got 2 young kids. And so I think about the city that they're growing up in, and that, years from now, maybe they'll be able to tell their kids, our dad was there when this happened or that happened. And so that part of it's cool for me.
Speaking of family, I want to know, how do you balance the life of being on local government and your family and all of the events and everything you have to do? How do you balance it all?
Well, caffeine has been a friend of mine for a while. Yeah. So my son just turned 10. Our daughter is 6, and they're both very active in everything. She does dance. She does fashion shows. She plays t-ball. Kingston is the quarterback on the football team. He's pitcher in baseball. He's point guard in basketball. He does every sport that he can fit in, and they're both great students. And and I coach like the youth teams. I coach baseball. But I love being around my kids. I love being with my family. And the cool thing is, with my day job, running a small business, and then with council, I try to find ways too that I can involve my kids in things. So even if I'm at a council event or something like that, sometimes my kids can come, and I try to make it fun for them too, so that I'm still involving them in some kind of way. But I probably don't get as much sleep as I should. So maybe that's where I'm.
So how do you sleep with them?
Well, whenever I eventually get around to it, that by the end of the day, I do, and then I'm out. But probably, running full speed ahead.
Well, you talk a lot about being out in the community and coaching your kids' sports teams. And, we talk a lot about leadership at Rogers, and it's really important to us. And so what do you think has shaped your leadership style, and how would you describe your leadership style?
I think I'm used to a team mentality. Again, I grew up playing primarily baseball and all the way into college, but sports in general. So I've always been used to working with teammates, and at the same time, I was the captain of the baseball team. So I know how to lead, but I know how important it is to get everybody on board. And so when I got on council, we've got 9 city council members. Well, as a baseball player, I'm used to a team of 9. And so I think the important thing is you find out what everyone's strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what my strengths, and more importantly, what my weaknesses are. And then as far as council, and I had to learn this along the way. When I first got on, you talk about when I was 24, I got on there. And all the other 8 guys had been there for a long time. And then I come in there right out of college, and I'm coming in, we need to be doing this, this, and this. And they're like, sit down and be quiet, kid, right. Which in fairness, I needed to learn, they had experienced things that I hadn't yet. Because until you're sitting there in that room, you think you can know, but you don't know until you're fully in there. And so I think it's about learning what your teammates or your colleagues or your coworkers or what are they passionate about? What do they care about? Is that something you can help them with? And then conversely, let them know what's important to you. I think communication is always key.
And speaking of that, that's a lot of people to have to get on the same page and work as a team. So how do you work through those moments where maybe not everyone is seeing eye to eye, but you still have to have that same mindset of moving Danville forward? But how do you go through that challenge?
Well, fortunately for me, I think our council, and it's, we've had some different members over the 12 years, but a core group of us has been this group for this entire time. And we work really well together. And I think it's when everyone is on the same page of the end goal. And again, we might have different variations how we get there, but I think the thing that's important is that I think we're down there for the right reasons, and we care about the future of the city. And when you do that, and when you can you don't have these kind of partisan divides or the things that sometimes bog down some other elected bodies, we're all wearing the same Danville hat when we come in there. We're all on that same team. And I think that helps. And, when you do have disagreements, what I've always tried to do, over the time is to be maybe that bridge guy that says, okay, this group over here is saying this, you guys are saying this. Maybe have we thought about like what that kind of middle ground can be, and to be that kind of logical uniter of when there are some disagreements on how do we get something, because it almost seems like a dirty word to say compromise in politics anymore, unfortunately, but truly compromise is at the core of what politics should be, because you've got 9 people or whatever your body is, not everyone is going to agree. They shouldn't. Like, you should not have, you don't want a monolith. You want people to have different views and different opinions. And how do you mesh all those things together? And sometimes, so I'm not going to get 100% of what I want, and they're not going to get 100% of what they want, but I'd rather get 80% of it and have to maybe yield on something else than to say, put my foot down and say, nope, it's this or nothing at all. Then nothing gets done. And that's not helping anyone. So at the end of the day, how do we help people? That's what it should be about. And so sometimes you don't get everything you want, but you still try to get what you can get to help, and then keep moving.
Uniter. I like the word you used, because it really sounds like you do help everyone become united. And that is important. And so I really love that word, uniter.
Well, thank you.
So to go on to do this at 24 years old and continue on for as long as you have, who would you say has been one of the biggest mentors through this journey?
So, I've been fortunate in life first, I still do 2 great parents who were instrumental in my life, who took me to sporting events, took me, to all the school things, made sure that I had exposure to things that would help me later in life and continue to support me to this day. So I always have to start with my parents and family in general. And then, when I was Mr. DeBoe, Joel DeBoe was a great influence for me when I was in high school. And he helped me at a time when I was just my grades were good, but I was kind of aiming. And he kind of shaped me in a way. And then going into college, I was fortunate. I worked for Bob McDonnell when he was governor. I had Doug Wilder as a professor, who was, the first African-American elected governor in history. And I got to sit across the table from him for 3 hours every week. And we formed a friendship. I still talk to him regularly today. I will ask him. So I've had a number of people over the years, and then there's local folks as well. But I think I try to learn something from every person that I interact with, because each person kind of has a different life experience that I can pull from. And so I've been blessed to just be surrounded by a number of people in my life.
Wow, that's really, really outstanding. So Danville has a lot going on. We know that. We've said that. What initiatives or what's happening in Danville right now that you are super stoked about? So excited.
Well, the cool thing is that we've got 3, what I would consider kind of like maybe once in a decade or once in a lifetime kind of projects that are all kind of coming online right around the same time. Of course, everyone's familiar with Caesars, and they're already there. But of course, the large permanent facility will be open in a matter of weeks. So that is coming on, and what that's going to do and what it's already doing, but the amount of folks who are going to come to Danville for the first time ever and get exposed to all the things that we have. And then, right down the street is the White Mill project, which I'm personally very like keyed up about, because, for one, it's just such an iconic symbol in our city. For years was a symbol of our success and prosperity, then became a negative symbol. That building in particular was cited by folks as this is Danville's decline, and they would show that building, and it was right there. And so to have that be able to come back, the neat backstory on that is we had renderings done of what that building could look like and what it could be. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in City Hall, and I asked Telly Tucker, who was our economic development director at the time, I said, Telly, can you send me those renderings real quick? I want to do something with them. And so he did. They emailed them to me while we were sitting there in the work session. And so there was this company called the Alexander Company that I had become familiar with a few months earlier. They were doing a project in Greensboro. And so I got the 4 best renderings that I thought would show that site. And I got on Twitter. Back then it was still Twitter. And I sent them a tweet and just said, hey, we've got this historic riverfront property. Would love for you guys to come take a look at it. I think you'd be a great fit for it. And within 20 minutes, I got this message back and said, we'd love to. Here's Dave Voss, our project manager, blah, blah, blah. He's going to follow up with you. And so that was the beginning of that. And of course, we had to go through a long process of figuring out how to make it work and all of that. But that initial thing is, I wish they were all as easy as me just getting on Twitter and reaching out. But that one did work out that way. So that project is going to be done. You're talking in phase 1, 150 apartment units right there on this building. And then the Riverfront Park right next door to it, $15 million park that is going to be completely different than anything else in the region. And I won't go through the list of all the things it's going to have in it, but it's just going to be very awesome. So those are 3 huge catalyst projects that all are going to be opening within a month or 2 of each other, which is just unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I mean, we ride past the mill and like what it's going to become. And even my daughter, who is 6, she's like, I want to live there so we can go to that park. And we're watching all of this happen. And it's so cool to see that happening right in our area.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Those are major things happening all at the same time.
They are. And I mean, then we've got all these number of housing projects that are coming on because, and again, you talk about the difference between where we were 10, 12 years ago to now. You know, you couldn't give away a house in Danville 12 years ago. And now we're having to do 10 years worth of housing development in a couple of years because the demand for housing in Danville is through the roof. And so, you know, we've got all these great projects coming online that are just, you would see some of these things in bigger cities. Of course, we're taking the warehouses that are down there and they're being converted into apartments as fast as they can, but new construction and just a number of cool things. The splash parks that we opened this summer. So we had 2, you know, that opened this summer. And then the larger one at Blue Park will be ready for next year. And then some more cool things on the way. So it's just, we're full speed ahead.
And I love that. And we have, you know, of course, everywhere you go, people have differing opinions on growth. And so how do you handle that being in the position that you're in when you have people that may want something different or they come to you with their concerns? How do you navigate through that and making the right decision?
Well, it goes back to communication like we were talking about before. I think for one, you've got to make sure that you're letting your citizens know what's going on, why it's happening, how it impacts them, good, bad, hopefully good, not bad, but you give them the full picture of what is happening because look, we want new folks coming into Danville. That's how you grow. Like that is, you know, so important, but you want to make sure that you're not forgetting about the folks who have been there, some of them for decades, and they've seen the ups, the downs, and everything, and they've stayed through all that. So you want to make sure that you have community involvement, and because the citizens, especially those who've been there for a long time, those are your ambassadors. Those are the folks who are going to be able to tell others about what you're doing in Danville, and so we want to make sure that they're on board. And you know, look. Sometimes we don't, there's always room for improvement. I always think sometimes like we should have done this, but you learn something through every process. And so I think as each thing goes on, we learn how to do it better the next time around. But I always think it's about communication. And even with that, you're not always going to make everybody happy. But I think most of the time, if you let folks know what's happening, why it's happening, and what it's going to mean for them, that takes care of the vast majority of issues that come up.
So, speaking of getting involved in the community and the communication, what is some advice you would give someone that's sitting at home right now? They want to get involved in the community. They're not really sure how. Maybe they want to run for local office. How do you even get started? You know, what advice would you give them when they are thinking those things?
So I think the first thing is we've got a number of boards and committees on the city that we're always looking for good people for. So if you're watching this, please go to danvilleva.gov and click on that boards and commissions tab and sign up. There's a number on there that's several different ones that
go online and sign up for what you're.
Yes, absolutely. Apply for it. And we almost every month appoint new people to different committees. So, you know, if you don't get the one that you want to get on right away, it goes into a queue. You're always on the list. But I would suggest, you know, folks to sign up for a few different ones and see which one you can get on. And so I was on a couple of committees before I ever got on council, and that helped me learn some things as well. And the other things are just, I think sometimes we get hung up on the bigness of things and thinking like as an individual, I can't impact the city at large. When in reality, if we would just focus on like your block or your street or your neighborhood and, you know, a cleanup or a neighborhood watch or community gatherings or an idea for a bench or just whatever the case may be for your particular neighborhood. Just think that if each kind of neighborhood had that kind of mentality and did that, then the whole city will improve because each neighborhood is going to take ownership of the improvement and finding a way to get involved in their part of Danville. So it doesn't have to be this big, huge thing. It could be something very small, but if each person does that, it's going to have a widespread impact.
Gosh, I mean, can you imagine if everyone came together and did that, how much faster the growth would be?
Yeah.
So everyone get involved and go to that website and fill out the form. We'll link it in the bio so you can just click on it and sign up for anything you would like. And, speaking of that, kind of where do you see Danville in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I use this analogy a lot. So if you're watching this and you've heard me say it before, I apologize. But I think the last decade, Danville, we were laying the foundation for a new Danville. This is the decade where the house is being built. And so I think in the next 5 years, you're going to see Danville bigger and more prosperous and more exciting than it has been in a long time, if ever. And I think we're only scratching the surface of what we're going to become. But it's important, though, I say that with the caveat that we have in front of us now boundless opportunities, which we haven't always had. I mean, when I started on council, we were pulling our hair out each year just trying to figure out how to balance a budget. Now we have opportunity. Now we have resources and revenue and things that we can invest. But it's important that we do it strategically and we do it the right way because there's other cities who've had similar opportunities and some of them blow it and some of them don't make the most of it. And so we want to be that example of a place that not only came back from collapse, but then went to the next level and is now an example of a growing, thriving, prosperous city. Yeah. So I think you're going to see a Danville with all our schools are going to be brand new and some of them literally brand new and the other ones renovated to be brand new. Test scores are going to be going up. We're going to have job. If you want a job, you'll be able to find a job. Housing is so diverse that no matter what type of housing arrangement you want, we'll have it. And I'm so excited about it.
You have me super excited about it. I can't wait to see this because it's been a long time coming. So are you guys watching as excited as I am right now? Because I am pumped. I want to talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
In this. What legacy do you hope to leave behind? And I know you talked a little bit about your kids and what they're going to be able to see you do and accomplish. What legacy do you hope you leave behind for the community?
I think all I'll let other folks kind of decide the good or the bad, but if nothing else, the thing that I've always, and no matter what it is that I do, I'd like for people to say, that's somebody who put his heart and soul into it and he gave everything he had all the time. And that's been ingrained in me through my family for generations. And so that is something that I've always tried to carry on. And so if people say that's a guy that when he was there, he listened to people, he fought for people, and he gave it everything he had, I'm good with that.
And you'll always be doing that. And, what are your future goals? Do you have any future goals you want to hit or meet, or what you got in horizon?
However I can help people and be of service and make a difference in my community. Danville's my home. It will always be my home and, will be my family's home. And so I just want to keep doing what I can do to make a difference, whether it's coaching or serving in office or through work or whatever it may be. Feel like that I left Danville a better place than I found it. And that's what I try to spend every day doing.
And I know everyone watching and listening, they're not physically sitting here right now, but I feel like I am sitting here. The energy that I feel, you are going to go so far. And I can feel it. And it's an intensity in such a positive way to where you are really going to be able to make a lot of positive change in this county, in this world, and everything that you do. So thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. I'm blessed to be able to do it.
Yes. And I am beginning to end these podcasts with a question.
Okay.
It's a final question, and it's really to continue promoting our community. And I'd like to hear from you. If you could have dinner with one local person, it can be a local leader, local community member. You can have dinner with one person. Who would it be in your local community?
Oh, gosh. Gee, that's tough. All the I try to think, because if I say that, somebody, you know what? I'm gonna give a cheesy answer, but I would take my mother out to dinner, because I don't always, for everything she's done for me in my life and continues to do for me and helps with my kids because my wife runs the emergency department in Annie Penn down in Reedsville. And so we're both very busy. So Mom, I will take you out to dinner. So
you're taking her. Hey, Mom.
Wherever she wants. So.
Oh, you get dinner only. So make sure you make that happen.
I will.
And again, thank you for being here and taking time out of your busy, busy day to sit down with us here at Rogers and get to know you better. And I truly mean it. I feel like you're going to go so far, and I'm going to see you in a lot more places in the future.
Well, thank you. And thank you guys for doing this. This is so cool what y'all are doing, and the impact and showing positive things in the region. Like, I love that. So thank you guys for that.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for watching and listening to this episode with Lee Vogler, your city councilman. In Danville, a growing place. We're so excited to see the growth. I hope you are too. And if you are a local business that's listening or watching today and you want to be in this seat, you give us a call and reach out to us, and we will be happy to get that on the schedule for you, because we want to give back to the community and continue doing so. And of course, rate, review, subscribe, share, do all of the things to help us promote this podcast. And we will see you next week. Bye.